Howdy, howdy, fellow trainers, and welcome for this very special bonus visit to Halzari region as part of the Pokemon Bliss and Oblivion Project. On today's show, not only are you going to meet a super awesome, that's right, legendary Pokemon of the Halzari region, but you're going to get a lot of really cool lore and backstory for this legendary Pokemon. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for taking a part of your holiday to check out this video. Let's get straight to it. Following is a piece of history from Halzari. Ages prior to the coming of Alcrom's first refugees to the shores of Halzari, the region was sparsely populated. Over time, the natives of the region that once roamed throughout began to settle. As small groups began to grow larger and larger, 8 great tribes of Halzari were formed. While each tribe took to a specific part of the region, their villages slowly sprung up and reflected the tribe in some way. However, one tribe more than any other thrived, that of the Wave tribe. People of the central south of the region who settled between the rivers that enveloped the modern Terror built up marvels of agriculture and technology of the time. Using the strength of the rivers to their advantage, they built aqueducts to carry waters for miles, bringing life to the region unlike any time before. The crops flourished, the village grew, and became the envy of ancient Halzari. They built upon their ancestral lands a paradise city, Veritas. Under the lead of their chieftain, they farmed to the pinnacle of production, mastering the fields. The peoples of Veritas thrived, as none went hungry. Their stores were so abundant that they would frequently send out gifts of food to their fellow tribes, making great offerings of peace. But even after this mastering of crop, their chieftain felt complacent in his station, wanting more. He tasked his people to become the greatest craftsmen of the land. The sisters Alturi, the 3 wisest of the tribe, protested, seeing greed in the chieftain's eyes. They cautioned that their people venturing out without the welcome of the nearby Boulder tribe invited dark horizons. The chieftain pressed on with his plans, thinking only his vision of Virides's future would bring further prosperity. Through his orders, swaths of his people flocked toward the mountains near modern Boulder. Though at first weary of their presence, the Boulder tribe welcomed their task. Together, the might of the 2 tribes dug the very first great quarry of the southern mountains, which remains can still be seen to this day. A bevy of gemstones and gleaming metals flowed from the rock like water. Day after day, carts pulled by great trunked beasts took the grounded treasures back to the city. In due time, the city gleamed in the sun like a blinding beacon. The shimmer of gold and silver took the city, and its people began to seek out the crafts of the Wave tribe more so than anything else of this world. Though the chieftain was pleased, it seemed his treasures only fueled him for more. Heavy atop his brow, his golden crown weighed on him, and he looked to his bejeweled staff as an arrow to yet another conquest. And there he stood upon his throne, away from the prying eyes of his people. He grew suspicious of them, thinking they were to claim that which he had rightfully tasked. For if the creations he commissioned were to exist in this world, they were to belong to him first and foremost. He continued to shy away from public eye, often going days without seeing true sunlight. He often looked upon the shining reflections of the crafted domain he created around him, and thought he had bested even the sun, as the light he needed more than anything was the glistening shine of his crafts. Though he would take counsel, he often disregarded it. His past glories blinded him, for every time a village elder spoke ill of his conceits, he pursed with anger. And the more vocal the sisters Alturi preached to his people, the more fury grew within him. He found a rage that could only match with conflict, and in his honor he sought to hold a glorious tournament. He took in the village elders, including the sisters, and he made aware his plans to build the Grand Colosseum of Eurytus. It would be the greatest palace of achievement to dot the earth. There, the most skilled trainers and their Pokemon would do battle. The tribes would take their annual battle gatherings to a grander stage and fight for the honor of the region. It was his vision that the ancient art of Pokemon battle would now become a sport like none other, that the most raw and unabashed power of Pokemon would be displayed for all to see, and that the Wave Tribe of Viridius would be the great victors of the tournament. Deep in their hearts, the elders grew weary and sorrowful. They knew dark tidings would come of the chieftain's scheme. Though they protested, the building of the Colosseum was underway before their words of caution could be heeded by the peoples of the city. After many moons, the Colosseum was an impressive crescent carved from the rock near modern Terra. Although the crescent stadium was an impressive feat, littered with gleaming gold finishes, the chieftain demanded more be built, that a full circle of glory be built in his honor, that the Colosseum be the encircling snare of only the greatest battles in history. The night after the chieftain made his declaration, he rejoiced with a feast befitting only a tyrant. The most skilled trainers of the Wave tribe joined him, as their excitement of the games burned deep within their souls. At his table he sat the village elders, more to mock than celebrate. After a particularly slurred speech by the chieftain, he proclaimed himself king of the Wave tribe, foregoing all traditions of a chief chosen by their people. He basked in gemstones and crown, and waved about his staff like a fool. In a fit of embarrassment and disgust, the sisters Alturi rose from their seats, and a great wave of purple light overtook the tent. In a chant, they proclaimed the new king to be a fool, whose folly had brought upon their tribe the darkest of grace. The new king rose higher in stature and demanded they end their charade, and shouted to the crowd of his feast. He ranted and raved of his power. He boasted of his strength, proclaimed his vision of prosperity was unrivaled by any power in the world. Cursed any who challenged his might. He cursed the creatures that sullied his work. He cursed any that stood in his way, for he proclaimed no man, monster, no force of nature could rival his vigor. The sisters began to weep in sorrow as they continued to chant. As they shouted out to the heavens, a crew of laborers sprinted into the lavish tent that had risen for the feast. With the king still raving, the laborers cried out in horror, claiming a storm out of the south. Within a few seconds, the canvas of the tent began to rip away. All about, chaos took the feast, as trainers and elders alike rose in terror. They all made for the exit of the tent. The flaps of the entrance clung to the rest of the tent like late autumn leaves, holding on until all strength left. The king, along with the rest of the feast, took flight outside and were blasted with winds that rivaled that of a fresh Lugi's tempest at sea. Even in the darkness, they could see the grains of sand that came their way. With no moon and only the pale flicker of the stars above them in the infinite heavens above, all scrambled to find salvation from the storm, but it came. A wall of sand overtook the lands of Viridis. The storm buried everything in its path. Looking outward to his doom, the king screamed in disbelief, feeling some divine injustice was taking him from the destiny he had chosen for himself. As the sands grew closer, he ran toward the storm in a war cry, leading with his staff. One final shimmer of his bejeweled staff was all that could be seen as he raced toward the final conquest, one in which he was conquered. In their final moments, with the cries of many calling out in panic, three sisters Alturi knelt together, hand. They muttered a prayer for each other and for their people. The winds around them howled and attacked with an endless barrage of pelting sand. They simply rose their heads and outstretched their arms, accepting the final fate their chieftain had wished upon them. The sisters then looked into the eye of the storm and saw 7 glowing orbs emanating from the epicenter. They bowed their heads once more in respect to the storm, and the wall of sand took them. In a single night all ended. The evergreen fields were covered. The fires of the forges were snuffed out. Hoards of treasure mined and crafted were buried. And in a single night, the might of nature was felt. Like the great artist it is, nature erased Viridis as if a flaw in a masterpiece. The Wave Tribe, like their namesake, was overtaken and entombed under the dunes of the swallowing sea. So goes the story of the swallowing sea. But what were those 7 emanating orbs from the storm? Our educated Pokemon trainers may know what kind of Pokemon we're thinking here, but why don't you meet that Pokemon? I'm super proud to introduce you guys to Regidoon, first of the Regi Pokemon that I will be unveiling for this region. The Regi Pokemon in general are an interesting group because at first they're somewhat uninspiring. They're golems of nature, and yet they don't have a lot of visual distinctiveness that makes them visually interesting half the time, let alone very character driven interesting. When you look into the lore, you look at their use, they're super cool. And there's a lot of room there to make them even bigger and better. And something that could be really, really cool in the use of Pokemon. So here we have Regidoon, which is a ground type Regi Pokemon. There's no known evolution, and its common location that is unknown as of right now. What is known about Regidoon, though, Regidoon is the Dunebringer Pokemon. Its presence has been lost for ages. Fables speak of a bringer of sandstorms so formidable that they could wash away civilizations under the dunes. Wonder what that sounds like. Its ability is Sandstream, so upon its arrival in battle, a sandstorm automatically breaks out. Now, I would like to see this is a common ability for a lot of ground type Pokemon, and I'm totally cool with that. And I think, as always, stick to something that is known within the Pokemon world when you are creating Fakemon so that you have something tangible and real to make it believable. I think that's always good. However, if this is a legendary Pokemon, I would beef up the damage done by the Sandstorm, really make it more formidable to battle a Regidoon. Especially if it were the boss battle where you catch Regidoon, I think the Sandstorm powers should be really buffed up to make it a true danger and make Regidoon that boss level Pokemon like we want all legendary Pokemon encounters to be. You know, especially us seasoned trainers, we remember how hard it was half the time back in the day to fight some of these legendary Pokemon. And now, outside of a few exceptions in modern games, it feels like it's extremely easy to catch legendary Pokemon half the time. It'd be nice to go back to that. So I would buff that ability up for a legendary Pokemon like Regidoon. Now, Regidoon at its full height is about 10 foot 3 inches tall, so it's pretty much double the size of a normal trainer. Its base stat is 580, with an HP stat of 100. And you're seeing a far more defensive nature because the Sandstorm is offensive, but it's far more of a cloak, and I love that idea for stat bases. So its attack is 70, its special attack is 70, so it's not bad, but its true strength is in its defensive capabilities with 150 defense and its special defense of 120, and still pretty good speed stat at 70. What's crazy is 70 doesn't sound that big, but half the time when you look at other Pokemon, you're like, oh wait, that's still pretty fast. Which I wanted to keep some speed in Regidoon because of the quickness in which a Sandstorm can appear out of nowhere in the desert and really overtake everything. I love that about that. And that's the whole point of Regidoon, is making this very interesting Pokemon. It's just unique and different and really harbors the legend that we've created for Regidoon. The cool part about Regidoon, and I will reveal even more details about it in a future video, is Regidoon, like other legendary Pokemon, play a big part in not only the overall storyline of the Halzari region, but its own geography, how things were created, why things are the way they are. So if you even want to go back to the first episodes of the relaunch, when we go episode 1 of Pokemon Bliss Oblivion Project, you can go look at the map of Halzari, and you can probably take a wild guess and figure it out if you want to put the context clues together where you may find a Regidoon. But you'll never know exactly until you get the full story. That was a really good, fun bit of lore to give you. And I am so thankful, as always, to be able to share these Pokemon with you. Thank you guys so much for being supportive. I am incredibly thankful to everyone who watches these videos, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. Doesn't matter to me as long as we're sharing ideas together and just sharing our love for Pokemon. So I hope you loved the special Thanksgiving edition of the show. Loved Regidoon. I hope you love that story. There's going to be more lore stories coming in the future, really building the storyline up of Halzari. I hope to one day give you a really full-fledged adventure that's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. But one day at a time, here we are. But there's going to be even more awesome bonus content coming your way. See or listen to the newest episode of the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast, because it's a bonus show in which we are rewriting Pokemon Phantom Menace. That's going to be a lot of fun. That launches just a couple hours after this video is launched, which is really fun. Go check that out, because we're doing a lot of bonus content for Thanksgiving, because we should be thankful for others. And I'm thankful to you guys, so I want to give you as much bonus content as possible. So check that out, just like you can with the rest of the Thanksgiving Pokemon we just unveiled yesterday. But beyond anything else, I hope you have something thankful to be thankful for. That's what that means. This wonderful holiday season. And if you're not in the US, I hope you still find something to be thankful for right now. And I hope you got some love in your life, because if you can't love you, who else can? So I hope you got some love in your life, something to be thankful for. If you don't have that, send a comment. I'll be thankful for you no matter what, because of the support you give this video, and beyond the fact that you're just probably a cool human being. So, peace, love, and hugs to you all. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you more down the road. Bye-bye!